behavior shapes our values, and then from our values, we cherry pick the facts that suits. So it doesn't matter if you shoot in the facts from the wrong way, it doesn't work. So once again, this is the correct way to change someone's mind, which makes it tremendously hard. And it makes it even harder because we are working with this machine up here, and it's called a brain, and the brain has one kind of overriding thing, which is to save energy. It needs to make decisions easy. So it can't like take in all possible different solutions or communication and try to find a good solution. It needs to kind of pinpoint, and it does that in a very lazy way. So it draws conclusion, right? And it can never question who we are, because then if you constantly question everything you see, you're going to go crazy. So it tries to, that's why we have racism and all these prejudice and whatnot. So the brain needs to make sort of conclusions. It means X or Y, not both. But the problem is in society, we need both X and Y. We need both parts. We need to have an open mind. On a personal level, we can say, okay, skip it, whatever, I don't care, I'm just going to go with X. But as a society, we need both. So what does that mean? Because we solve things differently. X and Y are different solutions to the same kind of problem. So to show this, I thought I would show you the difference between someone who's politically left, between someone who's politically right. In general, people on the right, they like things in order. They like symbols, they like borders, they like things in order, they come in time, they stay neat, they box things up. They get shit done, they're very, very strict and organized. Then you have people on the left, they're the creative, they're the open, they're the progressive. Let's move forward in society fast, let's change everything, let's rip it apart. But the thing is, we can't just go with the blue, we can't just go with the red. Anyone who's worked in a design company here knows this. If you go to the economics department and say, hey, we're going to do all these crazy ideas if you come from the design department, it's not going to work. You need this kind of break. So on a society level, we want the progressives to kind of take a step forward, and then we want the rights to kind of say, okay, good, all right, let's calm down now, let's fix this, let's make sure we have money to do this and whatnot. So we want this little shift in society. And we can see this conflict between left and right played out in social media in the worst possible way, right? So what we see is people screaming, people telling. That's at least what I see a lot of people telling how it is. They're screaming out, do this or don't do this, don't do that. There's not much listening. So what this social media, this kind of echo chamber does, it obviously that it enhances our way of thinking. We don't listen, we scream, and that enhances our own worldview. But as I said before, we need this change. We need this change in society. We need this kind of back and forward movement. We need both sides. We need both the design department and the economics department. Otherwise, we're not going to have a functional society or a functional company. And it's been working fairly well in society. Until now, I would say, or going forward a bit, because we have things that are changing now. More and more fields are coming into exponential growth, going from a linear growth into exponential growth. And what happens then is that these changes come faster and faster and faster. And if we are on the wrong side of the curve, if we don't listen to the other side, then there's a huge chance that we're going to swirl off the road and crash into a wall. So our time to adjust gets smaller and smaller. And we see this right now. Nothing more clearly than the change in, or the global warming. This is something that scientists have been talking about since quite a long time now, but it's became a political answer. And the people on the right say, no, it's not a problem. People on the left say, yes, we need to change everything now. And we don't listen to each other. And maybe it's already too late now to swirl off the road. And this is all, we see this obviously with Donald Trump. How the fuck did that happen? Well, we didn't listen to that part of society that actually were really, really upset with the current situation. And going on to the future, it gets even more and more dangerous, I would say. The biggest issue that you see a lot of huge intellectuals talk about is the artificial intelligence or super intelligence. That's around the corner. We're talking 30, 40 years, depending on who you ask, say 50 years. It's in our lifetime that we're going to have intelligence that are very, very smart, much, much smarter than we are. And if we don't decide today, if we don't listen to everyone in the field, in the spectrum, then there's a chance that we're going to swirl off the road. So, what's the solution then? Well, we need to change the way we communicate from a monologue to a dialogue. We need to start to listen instead of just screaming. And we have to go from a fixed mindset, where we know everything exactly like this box, to a growth mindset, where we want to grow as humans. And how do we do this? Well, if we look back at the postmodernism and modernism, we're not going to go back to modernism. We're already somehow, in a lot of countries, are in the end of postmodernism. So we need to continue into the future, but we can learn from postmodernism and modernism and take that into the future. So we're not going to go backwards. So I argue that the way to do it is by listening, to have honest conversations, fact-based, but also conversations that are based on the human experience. So if someone has a completely different worldview than I have, the only way for me to understand that is to listen. If I start to scream in that person's face, there's not a chance in the world that either I'm going to change my mind or that person is going to change their mind. So listening and honest conversation is key. And this is hard. This is really hard. And that's why it's good. Because when things are hard, that's when we really grow as persons. I would argue that this is cognitive behavior therapy, right? In its purest form. Exposure. Expose yourself to ideas and people and questions that you don't like. That's when you grow. You're not going to be tainted. You're not going to be sick by it. But you can grow as a person. For a lot of years, we've had this as the only kind of means of growth as a society, that cash is the only thing. GDP is what we need to go for. But we already kind of reached the end of it. Today, more people are dying from fat than from starvation. We have more people committing suicide than from external violence today in the society. We can feed people soon to at a cost of 0 because we're automating everything. So what's the next step? The next step is to put personal growth at the top of the ladder. To grow as a person, and the only way to do that is by being curious. And by being curious meaning listen to people. It doesn't matter how far away they are from you. You can still learn. And don't go into that conversation by saying, I'm going to tell you how it is. But go by saying, what can this person teach me? Once again, if you believe that your worldview is so fragile that it's going to collapse if you meet someone who you don't agree with, then I think your maybe worldview is very, very fragile. So, with that said, the biggest barrier we have today to learn and to grow is an emotional barrier, and it's not an intellectual. It's hard to be wrong, it's hard to face someone, but it's emotional, it's not intellectual. With that, I would like to say thank you.